Once you've created your schedule, the next thing we need to consider is the way it's going to look when it's placed onto a sheet. In this instance, I'd like to place this on the sheet A1 floor plan view. So let's double click on A1 floor plan view under the project browser. Place this area schedule gross building in the upper right hand side of the sheet. Select on area schedule gross building underneath schedules and quantities. Left click on it and hold your mouse button down. Then drag it over into your drawing area. You can now let go of your mouse button whenever you're in this area and then click in order to place it. Let's zoom in now and take a better look at it. So we can just spin the wheel on our mouse, and when we do this, we can see that there's actually several problems with this schedule. One is grand total, and it has 25 down below it. Right now it looks like it's grand total 53,935.25, which doesn't really make a lot of sense. The word administration is not showing up correctly, and we currently have an area schedule gross instead of an area schedule gross building. So to adjust this so that it looks right, we need to begin by selecting on the schedule. And then here we have what's called a control point, and that can get pulled out. Same thing with this control point here next to the word name. We can click on it, hold the mouse button down, and then pull this out so that we get a better spacing between such things as our names and our areas. By doing this, we can now see that area schedule gross building. We can read the entire thing. The grand total is now appropriate, and the word administration looks correct. But this still isn't quite the look that I want to have. Even though the space here does look good, one of the things I'd like to do is get rid of the space between the word name and administration. I'd also like to change the way that this area schedule gross building looks, maybe give this a slightly bigger font. And then finally, if this was going to be a presentation board, I might even consider adding a color to it. So to accomplish all three things, underneath the project browser, double click on area schedule gross building to open up that view. There's really two different ways that we can make these adjustments. One way is underneath the properties, and then we have formatting as well as appearance. Appearance in particular is going to be the thing that's going to allow us to do a lot of manipulation of the fonts and colors. So I'm going to select on the edit button next to appearance. From here, we can see there's a check mark next to grid lines. And that's these lines that we're having here in between each one of the lines. If we didn't want to have lines between this information, we could just clear that check mark out. And then on the sheet, it would no longer have lines in between each line. If we wanted to change the outline that's going around the outside of this schedule, we could. And that would be by putting a check mark here in outlines and then choosing the appropriate line type off of the list. But in this case, I kind of like the way that it all displayed. So I'm going to clear the checkbox next to outline. Put a check mark, again, right next to grid lines. But this does have a piece of information, though, that I did want to change. And that's that space between the word name and administration. That's being created by blank row before data. And if we clear that out, we no longer have to worry about that. It will remove this little gray area between these two pieces of information. If we wanted to show the headers, we could. The headers being name and area. If we didn't want to see it, we could clear the check mark. Same thing with the title of the schedule itself. Do you want to see it or not see it? And it's controlled by a check mark. Now, an interesting piece of data here, though, is schedule default. And what this means is that the schedule default is whatever information has been picked by default for this schedule based on the information here going across the top of the screen. So if we want to change this information, what I'd suggest is clicking on OK to this. And what I'd like to do is highlight where it has the words area schedule gross building. So I just clicked inside of the box, held my left mouse button down to highlight this entire line in blue. From here, we're going to do two things to it. First, we're going to control the font. So if we select on font, in this case, I'm going to change the size of this to be 3/16 of an inch. Also, if I wanted this to be bold, this is where I could pick for bold or italic or underline. And if I wanted this font to have a certain color, I could do that from here as well. I'm going to click on OK. We can see how this is now bigger and darker. Well, the next thing I'd like to do is also add color to this row. So to do that, I'm going to select once again inside of the box and then come up here to shading. And the color I want to add is going to be a yellow color. If there's another color here that you like better, feel free to go ahead and choose it. I'm going to click on OK to that. We can see the yellow. And now let's take a look at this back on our sheet. So to do that, I'm going to just click close in the upper right-hand side of this view. And now we can see it here on the sheet. If we want to expand this out, which we probably do so we can see the entire title, once again, we can click on it, grab on the controls, drag it out slightly, and then get it formatted exactly the way that we want it to be formatted. So we can change the look of these in really one of two different areas. Either by double-clicking here where it has the schedule, then coming in the properties, and then changing the appearance and edit, or by manipulating it through the tools that are available to us on the ribbon, which includes the different alignments inside of the cells, the different fonts, as well as whether or not you want to change the way that your borders or colors appear on these individual schedules.